Phil, can I just thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed on camera with regards to this increasingly important and now highly controversial subject where other people weren't available to do so. Can you tell me what your understanding is of the current situation with regards to the LDP first?
Yeah, so back in 2008, when I was newly elected, I was aware that we were in the process of adopting a local development plan for Wrexham. But at the time, the planning inspector felt that there was an under-provision of housing stock. So obviously we then renewed the process and went for what we call the local development plan 2, which culminated eventually in that process continuing, re-looking at candidate sites. It ultimately resulted in a planning inspector looking at it and finding it to be sound. It was decided by local members that they did not want to support the local development plan, and therefore the vote went as it did.
And one of those reasons for changing their minds was the lack of infrastructure, because when the LDP was approved all those years ago, there had been an agreement by the Welsh Government that there were funds available for the transportation links and for the other important infrastructure assets to be in place, schools, shops. They were saying to me that the Welsh Government have gone back on their word, and that was the reason why they didn't think the LDP was something that they then now can support.
It is a frustration, but the local development plan is just a strategy to outline what could be built where. Once that's adopted, each planning application has to stand on its own merit. And if it's felt that, for instance, the proposed development on Wrexham Road, which is in my ward, can't be delivered simply because they can't overcome the congestion issues on the A4, A3 Wrexham Road intersection, then it shouldn't get a planning consent. And that's where obviously the battle line will be if people feel that a development isn't appropriate for that location.
I don't think there's any disagreement amongst anyone that there is a requirement for additional housing in Wrexham. If we're building houses that will cost 250, 260,000, is it a case that we are building houses for people to move into Wrexham and, by some people's estimation, then ignoring the needs of the current population of Wrexham?
Wrexham has always been a welcoming place. And as a town, probably at some point at the beginning of last century, we were only a town of 10,000 people. So, you know, there's been a natural growth in the local population, but we've also welcomed people to come and work and live in Wrexham. And these new housing estates will just be a continuation of that story. And that's what we need in Wrexham, is to bring new people into Wrexham, as well as providing properties for our home community as well. There's a big argument that, you know, Wrexham as a city centre isn't vibrant enough. Well, it's not shops that make a city vibrant, it's people. And we need people to come into shops. And it's a chicken and egg situation, is that the shops won't be there if the people aren't there to fill them and make a profit for those shop owners. So I don't see any issue with Wrexham growing as a place, and that I welcome the Welsh Government's view that North East Wales is a region of economic growth, and therefore we should welcome that. And it just really builds on our aspiration to see Wrexham prosper, and that needs investment and confidence and growth.
I guess it is what it is now, but where do you think all this will end?
Developers will continue to put in planning applications. They'll probably get refused locally by the local planning committee because they're not in line with our unitary development plan, which ran out 15 years ago. But ultimately there is a process where a planning applicant, a developer, can appeal that decision with an planning inspector, who will probably give more weight to the current local development plan, which has been found to be sound by a fellow planning inspector, and give that more weight. So by default, development is going to happen, is what I believe. I just want to try and control it as best we can by having a local development plan.
Phil, thank you very much once again for turning up when many people wouldn't.
My pleasure. Thanks, Vaughan.